Hello, everybody, and welcome to Grand Slam KBO, our weekly podcast on the Korean Baseball League. Matthew Kerr and Bradley Hyder are both off this week, so I'll be talking to disgruntled SK Wyverns fan Michael Delgado about where it's all gone wrong for the 2018 champions. We also look at ballparks, what makes KBO Heroes championship favourites, and Hall of Fame returns after last week's popular edition of Hall of Shame. You can find us on YouTube, most podcast platforms, and on Twitter. Thanks for listening. Michael Delgado, welcome back to Grand Slam KBO. You were one of the first guests we had on in 2017, I remember.
Yeah, it's been a minute, but always a pleasure to be back.
Different with you because a lot of the people who are watching the KBO this year, as we can see on my KBO's Facebook page, are foreign-based KBO fans who picked up the league for the first time. But you're somebody who has lived here before. You've been following the league for a while, but you're not living in Korea at the moment. So what is it like following this league from outside of Korea, a league that you've gotten to know pretty well from your time living here?
Well, as you can see, looking out there, it's mid-afternoon right now for me. And so as a result, working standard ops, sometimes I'll get a chance to kind of check the scores on lunch. It's hard to find a quality stream because Germany doesn't carry American ESPN, and Naver, when it does work, which is rare, it just doesn't have the internet quality out here to keep up with it. The one thing I miss about Korea, best Wi-Fi in the world.
Yeah.
But to keep track of the league, it's starting to get tougher because the big names I remember from 5 years ago when I lived out there are passing their crop of new guys who, outside of the top one or two names, when you don't live in Korea, they do kind of blend together. You follow the drafts get posted up in the Facebook groups and everywhere, but I don't remember those names.
Yeah.
So it takes the first 3-4 months of the season to see a guy like the center fielder for Nexon, proving that point.
Yeah.
Lee Jung-hoo.
Yeah.
Comes into the league as a rookie and absolutely tears it up. And my mindset is, who's this guy? Where did he come from? 2 years on, he's a staple of the league. That's probably the hardest thing about staying with it. And then the other hard thing this year, just to segue into talking about this team, is to have a team that came off the back of a championship that even in Germany I had something to be excited about for, and came so close to doing it again last year. Expectations were through the roof. And I thought it was a bad start for the first 2 weeks or so. But to just have the team that had such hope and such expectation just fall off a cliff and so blatantly be not there and not where they should be, and still have not found it 100 games into the season, it's even more difficult because I can't get a pulse on it. I can't see what's wrong. I just see they're losing and they're bad, and it's hard.
Yeah. Well, look, we'll get on to the SK Wyverns in a bit. There's plenty to go through in that. It's been a remarkable season, as you were saying. A manager that's currently not in the dugout these days. Before we get on to all of that, let's just have a quick look at the standings. These have been updated since we first got in touch about 20 odd minutes ago, because the NC Dinos have won both games against the Lotte Giants today. So now they pulled 2.5 games clear of the KBO Heroes here on a Sunday night. The Giants are looking less and less likely like a playoff team. They're still only 3.5 games out of 5th, but they don't really look like a team that's going to win enough games to go on any sort of a charge. And the Dinos, from looking like they were going to lose first spot in the not too distant past, are now pulling away again in first spot. So this is the current table at the moment. Dinos ahead of the Heroes. KT Wiz are up to 3rd. LG Twins and the Doosan Bears make up the top 5. And the Hanoi Eagles are still in bottom spot. I'm guessing that's not the table you expected.
Out the gate, I mean, I definitely thought SK and KT would be basically swapped if you'd asked me in April. I thought, Lotte, Kia, Samsung would be about in that area. I didn't think Hanwha would have a 291 win percentage, but I knew they weren't going to set the world on fire. The real shocks to me have kind of been the Seoul teams. NC, we knew they were good. We knew what they had on paper. And it's good to see them actually producing, because they have done this thing in the past where they have just decided not to show up. But the past couple of years, they have really been there. And yeah, they're 2.5 clear. But what I see on the left there is that games played stat. They've got 7 less. Yeah. And they're 7 to the good in the loss column. So they really control their own destiny there.
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect them to throw that away. But really what's been astounding all season long, the way the Heroes have played. I said it in June, I think, and I've stuck by it, that they are the gem of Seoul this year when it comes to those 3 teams. And there was still a legitimate argument to be made for LG, but in the past month or two, I think the Heroes have really shown that they can take the fight to anyone in this league. And if we don't see at least one Korean series game played in a dome, if it's not all of them for weather reasons, we'll see how that turns out. But if we don't see a legitimate home game in the Korean series in the dome, I'd honestly be surprised, especially with the playoff format the way it is.
Yeah, they got there last year. Yeah, and they got there last year. They ended up getting swept by the Doosan Bears. But the other surprising one there is the KT Wiz. I know they had a good season last year, but even up until about a week or two ago, they were always on the outside looking in at that top 4, kind of compete, trying to hold off the Tigers and the Giants for the last playoff spot. And now suddenly they've jumped ahead of the 2 Jamshul teams at the 3rd. I think a lot of people expected a good season from them, but 3rd and only a game back from 2nd. This is quite a turnaround.
I have to give it to them. I got to give it to them where they're due. And I was there in 2016 when they were still a very new team, and they were still trying to kind of find their footing in the league. If you've ever seen a baby giraffe, was kind of how I would describe them. Very wobbly, very unstable, but they were trying their best.
Yeah.
And to look at what they're doing now, it's not insanely surprising, because Suwon does have a pedigree of good baseball if you go back to the Hyundai Unicorns. But for KT to do this, I thought best case P6 for the season. And granted, they've got a little bit of help. They've got Doosan not being the Doosan we're used to. Kia and Lotte are off a cliff compared to what they were even 2-3 months ago. But they've really seized that. The door got left open for them, and they stuck their foot in, and they said, you know what, I'll be taking this. And at the end of the day, yeah, there's still 30 and some change games left. And they're only 3.5 up on Kia in 6th place. But looking at those teams that are on the outside looking in right now, I just can't see where they're going to find one game every 10, on average a game a week, really, over that KT team, especially with head-to-heads still left to be played. I don't have that in front of me, how many there are.
Yeah.
But I just don't see Kia or Lotte getting there. And I think the best thing for KT would be to seize it and to really hold on to that 3rd spot, because what they don't need to do, and again, this is me speaking as an SK fan as well, is slide and stumble and have those growing pains again, like they're used to having, and end up sneaking into the 5th spot. Because if they have to go all the way up the ladder and play through tough teams and then get knocked out, it really damages the credibility of the season. People will say, oh, they backed in, they got in because Kia or Lotte or whoever couldn't get the job done. But they're in a position where they can really say that they're here to stay, and they're here to show that they belong in this league. And all the credit to them, because they've drafted very well. They really have.
Yeah. And Melrose Jr. is an exceptional baseball player in this league. You're an SK fan. They're in Incheon, west of Seoul. I can never understand why these two teams aren't bigger rivals than they are. Maybe to you they are. So I like to find that out. Are the KT Wiz the team that you dislike the most in this league? Because the way I see it is, there used to be a team in Incheon that then moved to Suwon, and then eventually moved to Gochok or Mukdong to become the what is now the Kima Heroes. But Incheon and Suwon is a pretty decent rivalry in Korean football, Korean soccer, and for me, it sounds like it should be a good rivalry in Korean baseball as well. But it doesn't really feel like that. The Wyverns fans seem to dislike Doosan Bears more than anybody else by a long way.
I think that's a theme for the league as long as I've known it, because Doosan was the Yankees basically. They were dominant. They won all those championships in a short time. I'm not going to go through them all because it hurts to think about them. As far as KT though, I will say that SK's marketing department, at least when I was there, were trying. They were trying to beef up the fact that it's the two big telecom companies in Korea against each other. They tried to beef up the Incheon versus Suwon thing.
Yeah.
And SK tried to make it sound like a rivalry. They tried to do all these theme promotion nights. From what I saw, KT was not really on board with that. KT was not pumping that particular rivalry up. I would personally, living as close as I did to Suwon, because I lived down in Pyeongtaek. So Suwon was actually the closest stadium for me. They were very apathetic to that almost while I was there. They didn't want to build any rivalry. They didn't want to target any particular team. But obviously, I've been gone for 4 years. For all I know, they have started to push that. KT, up until this year, though, they've just been that team that's there. And a major element of rivalry in every sport, is the competition aspect, is the fact that they're going to go tooth and nail at each other, and it's going to be a tight game every time. When I was there, actually, despite the great geographical separation, Doosan was so much better than everyone else in the league. Our biggest rival that particular year as SK fans was Kia. Those were always the games where Tigers fans, all the credit in the world to them, they travel amazing. I don't think there was ever a better atmosphere that I went to than a Friday night or a Saturday SK versus Kia game, because SK would pack out to the point where I would struggle to even get into the cheering section, and just the whole left field line would be full of those yellow thunder sticks.
Yeah.
So as far as rivalry in terms of atmosphere and energy, I'd say SK Kia was that. As far as rivalry in terms of animosity, in terms of a team that you don't want to see do well, definitely for SK it's Doosan, but I think that's just a case of, no one wants to see the same guys do it. I live in Germany right now, and basically either you're a Bayern München fan, or you hate them.
Or what?
Or you just absolutely loathe their existence, and you say, you know what, anyone but Bayern.
Yeah.
Me as a Dortmund fan, it's, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. So second pretty much every year. It reflects in how I feel about Doosan, and to see them, I don't care if they get in as the 5 or not. And if they can get in as the 5 and fight their way to a Korean series and win it, I'll be the first to take my hat off to them. But I'm just happy to see them not getting the free pass and just getting plucked up and put in the final like they have been for so long in my experience.
Yeah, I love it. I got to say, and I made this post yesterday on my KBO about it. Now that, of course, within 24 hours, they reclaimed 5th spot. As I was saying earlier on, the Tigers have been dumped back down to their seemingly all season long position of 6th. But I would be really happy to see anybody else win the league this year other than the Doosan Bears. And it's not just because they've won so many recently, but it would just be nice to see somebody other than Doosan. And I would put Lotte 2nd in that list, and then probably LG 3rd. And then perhaps any team after that that's not the 2 Jamshul teams or Lotte, as long as they're not beating the Tigers in the final, I don't think I could really care that much. It's those 3 teams I don't want to see win.
Those jackets.
The jackets. I mean,
and you know what? It will be nice. It will be nice this year, and I'm using this as an opportunity to take a dig. It will be nice that we will not see any Korean series games played in the 2nd best stadium in the KBO.
Yeah.
I don't care. Munhak will always have a place in my heart above Jamsil, but that's partially because I think Jamsil's a very cookie cutter stadium. I always did. If you
Okay.
look at it as a stadium, until it fills out, until it packs out, it doesn't really have that much atmosphere. And I went to too many LG games on Thursday nights where there was no one there. That stadium was made by its location for me. It was just the fact that it's in Seoul. It's
Definitely.
there.
Let's talk about that, then, because I agree. There's nothing special about Jamshid. It's just the location and the fact that you can walk around from foul ball pole to foul ball pole, first base to third base, and you can pretty much sit wherever you want. And there's nobody there checking your ticket. The outfield sucks in Jamshid more than any other ballpark in Korea, but the infield is pretty good, and the location is really good. Like the actual ballpark itself isn't that amazing, but Jamshid wins out every time for me, just because of where it is and the atmosphere inside.
I think if you take Munhak and you put it anywhere else, because Incheon is out there, it's an hour on the subway lines out of Seoul. It's up there in the corner of the country almost. If you take Munhak and you put it anywhere else, it probably wins out. But because of the relative remoteness of Incheon, that's why outside of Kia and occasionally the Seoul teams, the traveling aspect really wasn't there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if we're going to talk stadiums, I have to admit that I'm not qualified because I saw a couple highlights, and Suwon's Park has almost doubled in size since I've been there.
Yeah.
The outfield was just a strip of grass between the fence and the back wall when I was there, with that neat little mini bar that apparently has a propensity for getting its windows smashed in. And now it's a full-fledged baseball stadium, not to mention Masan's torn down now, is it not? Or at least closed.
Yeah, there's a new one there.
And C's playing in what appears to be a gorgeous new park, but I'll have to get back out and see it for myself.
I haven't been there either. I presume you never made it to the Dome.
I made it to the Dome many times. I'm the one who posted the legendary group picture of a bucket occupying a seat down the right field line. I hope they fixed that.
No, they may have fixed that particular hole, but there was a game on there recently when there was a leakage, probably 2 weeks ago during one of our regular monsoons here. So there's still a problem with the roof in the Go-Check Sky Dome. That was Bradley Hyder's nomination for Hall of Fame, which didn't win.
It's only 7 years old. I went to the All-Star game in that stadium because I had a very wonderful Korean friend who helped secure tickets for myself and Justin Schaefer, and we were in center field. And I realized it's kind of a common theme that outfield seating in KBO parks is mediocre.
Yeah.
But it was the All-Star game. I'll take what I can get. And Gochok does have that wonderful little shopping mall and food court underneath the stadium.
Yeah.
So it's quirky. It's got character. But come on, it's 7 years old. You shouldn't have a roof on par with the Kingdom.
And the obstructed views as well. Did you think it was a worthy nomination for Bradley's Hall of Shame?
It didn't get my vote because my vote very clearly went to the playoff structure.
Okay.
I think it probably wins if someone didn't put this damn playoff structure in there. I've been screaming about this playoff structure for years. It's so simple. You want 5 teams in? Okay. 2 versus 5, 3 versus 4. Or something along those. No, sorry, that doesn't work. I've been screaming about it for years. You have 4 and 5 play. Winner plays 1, 2 and 3 play. Final. There you go. And maybe it's more baseball to have this stacked ladder thing, but winning the league gives you a bye to the final. It's just never hit right with me.
The team that finishes 5th is never going to win the KBO, ever. And the team that's finished 5th has never even won the wild card because that's even stacked against them. You have to win 2 games, whereas a team that finishes above you just has to win 1 game or tie.
It's the best 2 out of 2?
Yeah.
Best Korea logic. But it's the KBOness, which I'm gonna save that. Save that. We're gonna come back to it.
I see where this is going.
I'm gonna get up on my soapbox about the KBOness later.
Yeah. the playoff schedule and the Gochak Skydome, from my quick reading of my KBO's thread on this earlier on today, my nomination for bunting with one guy on in the playoffs when it never seems to work and every single manager seems to fall into the same trap had double the number of votes of the other two. I won that one comfortably. And I haven't checked the Twitter feed yet. I let Matthew reveal the results next week when he comes back from his illness. But it seems like more people are peed off with in the playoffs bunting with a guy on first and always seemingly not scoring.
I've watched a KBO game. I believe it was LG and I know it was LG because LG did it. Away game. Might have been KT. First batter either drew a walk or got a single. Bunt. Second batter of the game. Sacrifice bunt to move the leadoff guy to second.
Yeah, it's trash. It's not fun. It's not fun. It's not fun. I saw. Do you remember Isan? Is that our Isangu or Isanu? Used to be a catcher for the Wyverns. He plays for the LG Twins now. He used to be at the time. He's part of that mammoth 4-for-4 trade between Kia and SK.
Oh, I thought you were talking about way back in the day, the SK catcher that went to LG who had the greatest cheering song ever, Jung Sang Ho, whose cheering song was to the tune of Living on a Prayer by Bon Jovi. As soon as I heard that for the first time in person, I was done. That was part of what got me hooked on this league. It was maybe the second or third game I ever went to in Jamsil on a Saturday.
Yeah.
SK against LG, and this man came up in the second or third inning, and the whole right side of the stadium erupts into Living on a Prayer by Bon Jovi. I was like, okay, this will be all right. But as far as that big 4-for-4 trade, Kia and SK, you're thinking of Lee Hong-gu.
No, there was another guy. Lee Sung-woo as well. Lee Hong-gu was the main catcher with Kim Min-chik in that trade. But I saw this other guy catching for Kia before all that, and twice he bunted into a double play in Jamshil. I knew that was just the end of my.
Anyone who bunts into a double play needs to take a month off immediately.
Twice.
Retire.
Retire. The other thing I hate is when there's two strikes on the board and they still make the guy bunt. And every time a guy bunts 2 strikes on the board, he's guaranteed to foul it. Every single
Absolutely.
time. And then he's out.
Absolutely. It's an unwritten rule of baseball. The baseball gods will not allow it.
Yeah.
The baseball gods will not allow you to get a fair bunt down with 2 strikes.
Yeah. It's absolutely insane. So I said Matt will have the confirmed results of that on next week's show. But judging by Facebook, I had the same number of votes as those 2 guys had together, which is quality. It's nice beating Matt in the Hall of Fame or the Hall of Shame. Unfortunately, Bradley has got 0 votes in so far. Actually, you might do well today because generally the people we bring on in a situation like this, they tend to win. Either predominantly the Hall of Fame, obviously, but the guest.
Has he sent you a submission? Has he sent you one or something?
What?
Has he sent you a nomination for the Hall of Fame, or is it just you against me straight up right now?
It's just you against me straight up today, yeah. And
I've got that.
I think you might win this, yeah, because I'm beginning to run out of Hall of Fame things to do, but you might win this one for sure. So let's have a chat about the Wyverns. And I'm not saying this because you're on the show, but the Wyverns are one of those teams that I don't have an issue with. If I would have when they won the series in 2018, the Tigers won in 2017. If we're going to hand it over to anybody, especially if it's against Doosan in the final, the Wyverns are not a bad choice. But this year they're absolute garbage. And just thinking of that SK KT rivalry at the moment, KT are 10-2 over the Wyverns this year. And your Incheon boys have 38 wins from 114 games, a 336 winning average. So tell us, why are the Wyverns so awful in 2020?
Oof. Honestly, it's a comedy of errors almost. It's not any one thing you can really point at. I thought it was a slow start. We had some bad luck at the start of the year. We lost our catcher, Na Ji Wan, who's been a talisman for this team for years. He's a solid bat in the middle of the lineup, and he calls an excellent game. And he fell off for 3 weeks, I think, maybe even a month at the start of the season. There have been injuries since then, but the pitching just wasn't there early on. And then when the pitching was there, they'd come out and they'd score 2 runs. And then when you get an SK team that's been based on the home run ball for as long as I can remember, and you've got basically Jamie Romack and Che Jong who can hit the ball out of the ballpark, you got to find other ways to score. And they've done it a few times this season. But even a blind squirrel finds nuts at some point. They've won 30-something games, but they're still on like a 300 win percentage. All I have to say, bottom line on SK is get well soon to the manager, Yum Kim Yup.
Yeah.
But when he goes to the hospital after collapsing in the dugout a month and a half into the season, and the doctors make a report that gets into the press that stress was a major factor, you have to look in the mirror and realize that his entire job, his literal career that he's been doing most of his life, is organizational control of a professional sports team, of a bunch of adults playing a game. And if you are executing that poorly, that you're literally a factor in hospitalizing your manager, you got to look in the mirror and fix something fast. And I will say that playing without a manager or playing with interim management for half the season has probably compounded the issue. But this ship had sailed for SK 6 weeks into the season. It was very apparent that they were not the team that coming into the year, most people, I would really love to pull up that preseason prediction article right now. Most people had this team in the top 3 at the start of the year on merit.
Yeah.
But the slump they had at the end of last year that led to them going from a lock to the number 1 seed down to, I think, the 3 by the time playoffs started last year, and then getting trounced out by the Heroes. It continued into the start of this year. Some key players got hurt. They lost their manager, and it's just been the snowball effect. And it's the question of when's it going to stop? And I'll tell you when it's going to stop. It's going to stop when the last strike of the season is thrown and everybody can go home, take a couple weeks off, forget that 2020 happened, not just on the field but off. It's been a crazy year. Everyone watching this, stay safe, stay healthy. This will pass. And come back into 2021 as what they were supposed to be. I don't think they really have to make any huge moves in the offseason. The foreigners have underperformed, but we saw that with Samsung 2017, I want to say. They were solid on paper. Their foreign pitchers were a disaster, and they ended up 8th or 9th. Cut ties with these guys.
Yeah.
Set your core, as you always have, because SK is a team of loyalty. You look at Kim Kang-min, the center fielder, Che Jong at third base, EJ Wan, the catcher. These are guys who were veterans already when I saw them in 2016, and they're still staples of the everyday lineup, and they're still producing. And it does probably put SK on the back foot at some point in the future that they stay loyal to these guys, because everyone reaches that end to their prime. Time comes for all of us. And in baseball, time is something that comes oftentimes very rapidly, very unexpectedly, and guys' production just falls off a cliff. But they've shown, if you look at these guys' individual numbers, that when they are in the lineup, Che Jong's been mostly healthy at least.
Yeah.
But when these guys are in the lineup, they're still solid, valuable pieces. So for me, SK has to do the right thing right now. They've got to write off this season, keep those guys in the lineup that have earned it, but those other positions where guys aren't pulling their weight, get a young guy in there, let them develop, and look in the mirror at the last 4 or 5 years of SK baseball before this year and remind themselves that that's what they are. This team was a contender, and this proved to everyone in 2021 that this year was an outlier.
Yeah.
In every sense of the term. However, I don't know if they'll do that strictly on the grounds of it's SK, and with the exception of the year that they won the series, I've watched this team be a comedy of errors when it counts. They're always better on paper than they turn out in the final standings, and that's just an SKism.
Yeah, like you mentioned there, like last season, I think it is important to remember that they finished with exactly the same record as the Doosan Bears last year: 144 games, 88 wins, 1 tie, 55 losses, a 615 winning percentage for both teams. Like, I'm absolutely sure that's never happened in the KBO before, where it had identical records like that. But the Bears won 5 straight at the end of the season, 8-1-1 to close out the year. The Wyverns finished with 4 wins, 6 losses. And because as we know, like if you finish first, you go straight to the Korean series, and that's it. And like, this year could have been entirely different. That they finished first, got to the Korean series, and then we're waiting for the winners of Doosan and Kion in the next round. And they could have just gone on to win the championship, and everything changed because they only won whatever. Just say they only won 4 out of the last 10, and blew what was a pennant that was in their back pocket going into the last week of the season.
There were 7 clear with like 3 weeks to play or something like that.
Yeah.
It was on luck that they could have started printing shirts, because one thing I love about the KBO, and someone's got to put this up for Hall of Fame eventually, there's commemorative shirts for everything in this league.
Yeah.
Absolutely everything. They did a commemorative baseball for Chae Jung setting the record for getting hit by pitches. They could have printed the shirts for the regular season championship, and they found a way to tank it. When I was there in 2016, they were 3rd or 4th in the league with a month and a half to play. I went off to Alaska for a month for work. I came back. They were sitting in 6th, 2 games out with, I think, a week left in the year. And I was there the day they got eliminated by NC with 2 games to play. And they finished 6th. Because it's just what they do, with the exception of that one year that Trey Hillman and his crazy hippie hair united everyone and got him a championship.
Yeah. So they hitting all those home runs. Even last season, Trey Jong and Romek had 60 between them. But also, like, another big issue here as well that we have to talk about, though, is the foreign. You mentioned the foreign players as well. But Kim Kwang-yeon is gone. Last season, he was 17-6 last season. Sanchez was 17-5. And then even guys like Moon Sung-wan and Pak Jong-hoon, not having particularly wonderful seasons this year, but they were reasonably solid last year. Nobody really this year is performing to what a Wyverns fan would expect them to be able to do.
And I'll give Moon some credit, because I've been giving Moon this credit since I saw him pitch in 16. I still remember one particularly solid game. He got us a complete game, and we beat LG 2-1. And I said, Moon Sung-wan is maybe the best number 4 starter in this league that's not known for starting pitching depth.
Yeah.
Obviously, KK is a huge loss. He's playing pretty well for St. Louis right now. He's been alternating between starts and time out of the bullpen. They're working on stretching him out that I've seen. But everything I've seen of him, he's been pitching pretty well in the majors, and I'm incredibly happy for him, because it was no small secret that he wanted to be in the major leagues. He battled back from missing an entire season to injury, and he's living that dream finally. That's great for him, but he was the face of this franchise for nigh on a decade. I don't remember when he broke into the league exactly. He was on a couple of those championship teams back in the late 2000s. So I know he was on the team for at least 10 years. And he was a face. You went to an SK game, and there was a lot of 29 jerseys, either on the backs of fans or being held up on a thunder stick facing the field.
Yeah.
Because fans would do that at SK games. They'd bring like 3 jerseys and just hold them up. Don't know why.
Yeah.
But I dig it. They embraced it. But to lose him, and then to have Pinto come out and basically be the typical SK second foreign starter. They've been doing it ever since they had Braulio Lara for the second half of 2016. A big Latin right-hander who throws incredibly hard but has no concept of where the strike zone is. And then to have the issues they had with injuries to the guy whose name I'm really forgetting right now because he got hurt like a month into the season.
Yeah.
What was his name again? Help me out here.
I can't remember. It's
Case
a
in point.
classic SK thing. It's just gone.
I mean, you go back, Scott Diamond,
Yeah.
walks killed him. These guys, the last time we were looking at two solid foreign starters was the start of 2016 with Merrill Kelly and Chris Seddon. And they decided to let Seddon go after a couple of bad starts. Lara never got into it. And ever since then, SK has been a hit or miss with the pitching. Usually they'll get one pretty good one, and the other one half the time gets run out of town. Don't know what it is. Some teams always find the foreign talent. You look at Doosan and even Lotte to a level. These guys always have solid foreign players, whether it's Doosan with Fernandez, going back to their pitching, Lindblom, all the way back to Dustin Nippert. Even KT, credit where it's due to the Wiz. I've never seen him really have a bad crop of foreigners. They will get injury problems sometimes. And they also sometimes make the SK mistake of picking a guy who throws hard and can't locate. But KT's usually in the top half with foreign players, and Mel Rojas has really stepped up this year. I don't know what it is with SK, and to an extension, Samsung as well has this problem that the foreign scouts come back with glowing reviews about a guy who comes out and posts a 6 ERA.
And then the batters, yeah. And then White is out for the season now as well. He was only brought in to replace the pitcher, and now he's done as well. And there's no point. Obviously, they can't replace him. There's no point, even if they could, there'd be no point in replacing a guy like him now as well. It's all about building for next year. But did you like the idea of at least having two foreign batters, or would you prefer to have two pitchers and one batter?
Well, I think there are certain teams that can get away with it. And I think it's a bold strategy from SK. I give them credit because, like I said, Na Ji Wan is one of the top bottom of the rotation starters in the league. Right now, they're asking him to punch above his weight because there's not a ton of depth there. I think, especially now, correct me if I'm wrong, but they've waived the rule about all three foreigners playing in one game.
Yeah.
So I think we will see more teams go that direction. Ultimately, in my experience with the KBO, it's a league with pitching weaknesses, though. So to throw two batters out there, I see it with SK because SK's always lived and died by the home run. So get two big boppers who weigh twice as much as anyone else on the team and tell them, hey, big man hit ball. All right, that makes sense for SK to do that. That's a very SK thing to do. But I'd almost rather try to see a team somewhere in this league go for three pitchers if they can flex it in the rules. I don't think there's any sort of rule that says one of them has to be a position player.
It does, yeah. There has to be one position player or one pitcher.
All right. Well, personal opinion is this is a league that's stronger offensively. Unless you're getting a guy like an Addison Russell, who, all his off-field issues aside, is a stellar defender, then I don't see the purpose. I think you're better off trying to keep runs off the board. But if you are getting a guy like that who can be a mid-range bat, because the pitching isn't at major league level, you get a guy who can hit, I don't know, 290, 300, get on base at like a 350, but plays outstanding defense, I think that's a worthwhile move. It's really a question of who you trust in your pitching staff. I think teams that could get away with it, Kiwoom could do it. They have some very solid Korean pitching. If Kia could remember that they have Young Hyun Jong, and Young Hyun Jong could pitch like Young Hyun Jong, then they could get away with it, probably. Only just. But I don't think it's going to take with 8 to 10 teams in this league. I think we'll see it from maximum 2 moving forward. but it will be interesting to watch.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool if you're allowed to have 4 and you could have 2 and 2.
4 would work. I agree.
Yeah, I think the issue, as you're saying, is just it's having enough Korean starters who can fill a rotation that you don't need one far better, and there really aren't that many teams at the moment. But the Heroes is an interesting one because with all their injuries this year, they've been forced to play so many young Korean pitchers, and next year these guys get more experience this season. Next year, these guys could be proper viable starters, and then they can take that option. You mentioned Addison Russell there. I was pretty excited when he came over. Look at a guy who won the World Series in 2016. He was an All-Star that year as well. He's batting around 275 at the moment in a really good team. He's on the bench quite a bit for the Heroes at the moment. Without going too much into his playing career over in Korea, but for whatever reason, maybe it's pretty harsh, but I just expected more from this guy than he's currently showing at the moment. Do you think it's just, I know like we're not professional athletes here, but is it just a bit of a time of getting adjusted over here and then maybe coming coming halfway through the season is not as ideal as coming, at the start?
I think that's got something to do with it. I do think that plays a role, but I think at the same part of it, you're looking at it as a fan who's only really seen KBO baseball. KBO baseball is what you know baseball to be, and fans of the KBO in Korea, I wouldn't be surprised to see them say he's underperforming just looking at his numbers, because you expect from the foreigners in this league a big bat. Hector Gomez was a shortstop for SK in 16, but he wasn't a prototypical shortstop. He was a big guy, 6'3", 6'4", and he hit something like 16 homers in half of a season. These guys that come out here are usually power bats, guys who hit the ball out of the yard and can put runs on the board. Russell, while yes, I'd say his offensive numbers have been dragged down a little bit by being thrown into the midst of a season, as opposed to having the whole year to prepare and play a full season. But at the same time, Addison Russell's not that player. Addison Russell's not the guy who's going to come out and hit 30 home runs.
Yeah, he's at 10 errors. 10 errors defensively, which seems like quite a lot for a guy who only came in halfway through.
That is true, and I don't really know what that has anything to do with anything. Yeah. Being a guy who played a lot on turf fields growing up in the state of Washington, I don't know if it took him a while to get used to how the ball's bouncing off the turf at the Dome or what it is.
Yeah.
Because a big part of Addison Russell's game has been his range, his ability to get to a ball and make a play that a lot of guys wouldn't make. That's what got him places in the major leagues.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if maybe he fell out of the major leagues because he doesn't have that anymore. Because as I said before, father time comes for everybody. But he's never going to be a dude who's going to light the world on fire with his bat. He pretty much is what he is. If he hits 300, even in the KBO in a full season, I'd say that you take that. When he does get on, let him steal a few bases, but ultimately he was supposed to be, and I can't really vouch because I haven't seen much of his personal game, whether he has been or not, but he was supposed to be a guy who would lock down the middle of that infield with, oh geez, I just forgot his name.
The Kim Ha-sung.
Yeah, Kim Ha-sung. You put him and Kim Ha-sung together, and in theory, nothing should get through that infield unless it's absolutely scorched.
Yeah.
And if you've got solid ground ball pitchers, one that really strikes my mind is Triple H, Han Kyung-hee. Guys who are throwing the ball low and getting it hit on the ground, and you have a solid defensive middle infield, that's done and dusted. So I thought Russell was a great move for them. And truly, I think if they get a guy like a Russell in the world and then use their third foreign spot for a more prototypical KBO power bat, I think they would be a team that could very much get away with it, especially with how well they have still produced as a team in spite of all the injuries and the hodgepodge that they've had to use on the mound. I'm really impressed with them.
Yeah, I agree. Let's talk about off the field then, or you can answer this question whichever way you want. But for somebody who has experienced the joys and the wonders and the sadness of KBO when your team is leading by 3 or 4 runs in the ninth and they go on to lose the game, when the bullpen comes in, is there anything that really stands out and something that you miss? I love asking this question to people who are not living here anymore. Everybody always says the cheering, the drinking, getting drunk in Munhak or Jam Show. What stands out as like the thing that's missing most for you?
Well, I'm going to have to torpedo the whole structure of the show a little bit here because I'm going to have to reveal what my Hall of Fame nomination is. It's not an individual thing. It's the concept. And I wish Matthew was here right now because he wrote a whole long expose on it, but it's just the KBOness itself. It's a manager's decision to lay down a random bunt. It's an intentional walk to a 3-hitter with one of the best power bats in the game coming up, and then he immediately hits a grand slam. It's a ball getting hit to a stalwart middle infielder who's been playing the game his whole life, who's 28 years old, and in a clutch moment, he just decides, you know what, there's guys on first and third, and I'm going to throw it to third base for no particular reason. And then it's that throw getting dropped and going to the dugout. But not going into the dugout. It bounces off the dugout rail and goes into left field, and then the left fielder overthrows the catcher. And then the pitcher picks it up and overthrows the second baseman, and then the center fielder throws the initial batter out at third. It's these things that you see on the schoolyard growing up, and it's the things where as a baseball player myself growing up, you're standing in the middle of the infield just screaming at all your teammates to hold the ball, but these are professional athletes who are at the top of their game, and you can just blatantly see that they're just like us out there having fun. KBOness, it's the guys like, you know, Na Ji Wan or the one and only Chejun Suk, who look like they just got up off their couch, threw on some white knickers, walked out on a baseball field, and all of a sudden picked up a bat, found themselves in the box, and turned out to be pretty good at it. It's a league unlike anything else in the world. And I really feel for the fact that while fans are back in the stadium, the atmosphere is still very much restrained. And I feel for the fact that the fans who have tuned in from overseas, from the States, just because it was the only baseball going, didn't really get to see what this league really is. And I don't just mean the games like the one you and I went back and forth about for quite a while, where SK gave up 10 in an inning to Kia, and then Kia promptly gave them 13 back. Yeah. That's something you only see in the KBO.
Yeah.
Kia and their 14 pitching changes an inning. It's one of a kind, but the one thing I miss more than anything, to go back to your very first question, and to tie it all in, is the atmosphere. It's the fact that I've been to a game where SK was down double digits to Hanwha in a home game on a Thursday night. And there was only about a couple hundred of us in the cheering section to begin with, but every single one of us was still there, and we still stood up and we still sang and danced for every single batter, and then sat there with our head in our hands when our pitching went out there and gave up another 10 runs. But it's just the fact that it's just a bunch of big kids out there playing the kids' game, just like they say in the movie Moneyball. Everyone finds a time where the game tells them that it's no longer time for them to play the child's game.
Yeah.
And that hasn't come for these dudes, and they're loving every minute of it. And sometimes you do get something that you wouldn't see anywhere else in the world. And for me, that was what kept me going. And it's what keeps me watching, even from out here, is the fact that I'll watch a textbook triple play, and then I'll proceed to watch 6 errors be committed on the same one, or by the same team the next inning. It's unpredictable. It's fun.
It is, and I have to show you this one because there's obviously loads of examples of KBOness, but this is one that Danny Kurtz likes to share on my KBO. This was, I can't remember what year it was, but as you can see from the picture,
Please tell me this next in play.
it's a Kia third baseman Ibam Ho standing behind the catcher to do some defensive work as Shindom Sop cannot throw the ball straight. It is the top of the nine. The Tigers are 5-5 for the KT Wiz. Men at 2 and 3. Shim is not a particularly accurate picture. And there is a third baseman standing behind
I've
the
seen this
umpire.
play before. And can we take a minute before we go on to talk about the fact that those Kia jerseys, you can't see it in this screenshot, but those Kia jerseys say "Love Together."
Yeah, okay.
Fun fact, it is clearly black and white in the rules of baseball that only the catcher is allowed to line up in foul territory. So he was subsequently and immediately told off. But that screenshot is just what it is. And for those of you watching this podcast who are still with us, even though MLB is back, or who are with us from Japan as NPB fans, or from anywhere else in the world, get to Korea someday. It's a beautiful country. It's just by its nature, where it's located in the world, very centralized and very easy to get around. And you got to go to a ball game, and you just got to feel the atmosphere. And I guarantee you there will be 1 or 2 moments every single game where you find yourself laughing, either at the misfortunes of the team you're rooting for or at the good luck of your own team that the baseball gods just smiled upon you and the KBOness has blessed you.
Yeah.
You just got to go, and you got to experience it. I can't describe it. I could sit here all day, but I wouldn't do it justice.
Yeah, I try to think of like the most KBO moments of games I went to. I remember I went to a game in Jamshid where the lights went out for about 30 minutes, and there was a blackout inside Jamshid. I think it was a Friday night game in Busan. And that was pretty KBO-ish. There was that game in when the new Tiger Stadium opened, when somebody set a row of seats on fire because they tried to barbecue some Sam Gibson in the.
I missed that.
The first.
I missed being able to bring a grill to the stadium. I'd say mine was probably a more typical baseball thing. LG being in full control of a Saturday night game in a packed Jamsil against SK, being up 3-0 going into the 7th, giving up 1 home run, and then giving up a walk, and then back-to-back shots that turned the game on its head. And the stadium being just as loud with visiting fans as it was from home fans. And then SK's closer came in and very nearly blew the save, but got it done with a freak double play or something like that to end the ball game. It's not the majors, but it's baseball.
Majors, no. And it doesn't try to be. And I think that's the important one as well. It doesn't want to be, and it doesn't try to be.
It's authentic is what it is.
Yeah.
It's unapologetic. It's what it is.
Yeah.
And I adore that.
Yeah, I think the comparisons with Major League Baseball are really unfair. And you like football, soccer. Like there are Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich. Actually, let's talk about Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich are the best team in European football right now. Possibly world football, but who cares? The best team in European football. There's no point comparing FC Seoul to Bayern Munich, or the players who play for FC Seoul, or the Suwon Blue Wings, or Incheon United to Bayern Munich. It's a different league. It's the same sport, but it might as well be a different game. And the KBO doesn't try to be Major League Baseball and that. Like it's its own level. The players are really talented there. They're going to make mistakes that you don't see in the majors, and that's why they spend most of their careers or all of their careers playing in the KBO. But it doesn't mean it's garbage. It's infuriating. It's infuriating sometimes, but it's a great league.
And I don't know how some of the guys do it, because I'll admit it, and this is me as a 12-year baseball player, it doesn't necessarily take the same level of physical endurance as some other sports, because it is a game of brief 90-foot sprints for the most part. But the number of guys who just really do look like they walked out of the stands, slapped a pair of pants and a hat on, and are playing at that level. I mean, Na Ji Wan looks like the cool uncle at a barbecue half the time, except he has the face of a cat. And the man hits 30 home runs a season. Ide Ho. I love that guy. Always smiling. I met him in Seattle. When I was in Korea, I went back to Seattle for a month while he was playing for the Mariners. And I went up to him on the side of the field. I think I was wearing an SK jersey and hat. And I remember looking up to him, and he looked at me, and he had this look like, I'm in Seattle, and there's this white guy wearing a KBO jersey right now. And I just looked at him, and I just said, Ide Ho, hi team. And the smile on his face, I like to think it was part of the 2 home runs that he hit that day against the Texas Rangers. And then he came back to the KBO, and he had a box of fried chicken thrown at him by a fan.
By the team that he's represented almost all of his professional career, and is a hero down there, and somebody still took the time to throw a box of chicken. And speaking of,
as goofy as he is, I'm surprised he didn't just pick it up and take it with him. It's like, okay, this is mine now.
Speaking of KBOness as well, Ted Smith, who a lot of people listening might remember from his time doing the cheerleading with the old Next Gen Heroes. I think it was in Gwangju, but it might have been there's one story in Gwangju and one story in Busan. And in one of the ballparks, the fans didn't like him doing the cheering in the away section when the Heroes only had, 15 or 16 fans in the away game. So they lifted him up and they threw him out of the ballpark. And it's scandalous, but also pretty funny. And then in one of the other ballparks, which I think was in Sajik, then in Busan, somebody stole the man's drum because he was playing music in the stadium.
Stole the man's drum.
They stole his drum, which is ridiculous. But again, he has a good sense of humor about it. At least he's not one of those people who was furious about it for a long time. But I mean, I'm sure that could happen anywhere. That could happen in an English football game or an Indian cricket game. Who knows? But it was funny that it happened over here when just a foreign guy just wants to play music for his team at a baseball game. His lifted shoulder height out of the stadium, dumped out in that ballpark, and in this one, his drum is nicked.
Hey, I mean, at the same time, you've got the Lotte cheermaster who comes out for multiple games that I've seen in full kit and knee-high white leather boots. And he's blowing his whistle, swinging his arms around, damn near falling off the top of the stand, just having a good time.
Yeah. Look, the league is nothing against these players, but I'm glad you've already introduced your Hall of Fame. So that's it. Your Hall of Fame is KBOness, and
indeed,
you're going to get a lot of votes for that. There's no doubt about it. It's a good suggestion. It's a superb suggestion. I'm surprised it hasn't been said before because some of these Hall of Fame nominations could be Hall of Shame. Matthew nominated plastic bags in the head in the seventh inning by the Lotte fans. That could conceivably be a Hall of Shame nomination too. And when I suggested Na Ji Wan a long time ago, I got no votes.
Plastic bags on the heads. I remember Matthew taking me to a couple of Lotte games in the Sky Dome and me sitting with him and him giving me a plastic bag. And I was like, what am I supposed to do with this? And he said, here, let me show you. Well, he showed me.
Yeah.
And to this day, I know how to do it. And to this day, every year or so, if you get me drunk enough at a party, I will do it.
You'll put the plastic bag on.
I will take a plastic bag and I will do the whole thing, capture it with air, tie it off, put it on my head. And then when people ask me what I'm doing, you know what I do? I reach up and I go like this and pop it. Because that's the only thing that's good for, making a bunch of noise and stretching your ears. I do like the whole origin story on that. Matthew could fill you all in on it better than me, but it was something along the lines of Lotte fans sticking around to clean up their own stadium after a game.
Yeah.
And then they just started putting bags on their heads.
Yeah, it's got tradition. I know from listening to Kerry Marr as well that there is a tradition down there too of there was a game a long time ago in Sajik when maybe 400 people turned up. It was the lowest crowd ever at a KBO game. And there's an urban myth. It's probably not true, but it's a good story that those 400 people still turned up for dinner together once a year and reminisced about the time they were the only people at this baseball game.
I want that to be true so badly.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's along the lines of that game in the NHL in the late 80s, which I'm dating myself by the fact that I wasn't alive till almost a decade later. There was a massive snowstorm to the point where the refs couldn't even get to the game, and something along the lines of 81 fans showed up, and they still reminisce. They all have little coins that say, I'm one of the 81 or whatever. And they still do get together, these New Jersey Devils and Hartford Whalers fans, I want to say. It's things like this that just remind me why I love sports. And sports is a global language. I can read Korean, but I can't tell you what it means. I can look at Hangul on a wall, and I can tell you what sounds it makes.
Yeah.
But then you say, oh, that's cool. What does it mean? Not a clue. And yet, I still distinctly remember being tapped on the shoulder by a 50-something Korean man with the brightest smile on his face and being handed a full cup of beer halfway through an SK game. Because that was our language. Yeah. Baseball. Yagu. I miss it, and now I want to come back. When this whole craziness in this world clears up, I'll get back out there.
Yeah, actually, now that you mentioned it, there's no way there was 400 people at the game I was talking about. It was definitely double figures. It was like 80 or 90 or something. But even so, I really want the story to be true. Even if not all of them are at the game to this day, it would be nice if there was still, every now and again, some people as part of that crew just meet up and talk about the time when the Lotte Giants were by far the worst team in this league.
Just book out a Jimjilbong and relax. I don't know. I had a lot of Korean friends that invited me to them, and I never did get around to going to one, but I hear that they're just like fancy saunas. I don't know.
Yeah. Good shout, though. Good shout. I'm kind of, honestly, I'm stuck for one. I've been thinking all week about Hall of Fame nominations, and I was thinking today as well when I knew that you were definitely coming on, and I knew you would talk forever about Munhak Stadium. So I was actually thinking of doing the outfield of Munhak Stadium, but I won't. I'm not going.
So good.
It's a good one, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to show you the picture too, because it's not that I've got props or anything. But as you know,
this is what I think it is.
I only followed baseball for the first time when it came to Korea in 2009. I fully admit that I had no interest or no knowledge of baseball in that game era. You always need one of those moments, you need one of those moments that you'll remember forever, your first moment of watching baseball. And I'm going to nominate walk-off home runs in Korean series, especially this one.
Look at this man. Let me go back to everything I said about Na Ji Wan for president of the world. This man looks like, there was always that one kid on the playground, and he just looks like him. The one kid on the playground who was quiet and kept to himself and did not look like an athlete at all, but then joins the pickup football game and proceeds to score a hat trick or something.
But I think the reason why I like players like him, and I brought this up in one of these other shows before, is you brought up Trajan Sock before as well, and Pak Sok-min at the NC Dinos is another example. Dudes like this make baseball fun. They make the KBO fun. You need characters like this, and as much as everybody seems to dislike him, who doesn't support the Doosan Bears, but OJ Wan is needed in this league. Because
I think, you need – that's a thing in every sport, but especially in baseball. You need a divisive firebrand type guy who – especially I grew up as a hockey fan as well too. There's always those guys in the league who, when he's on your team, you love him. But if you're a fan of any of the other teams in the league, he's just – you just want to throw something at his stupid face. But they're the ones who get you talking, and they're the ones who keep you talking.
Yeah.
And for the first time in my 5 years following the KBO, OJ1 made me smile when they were playing closed capacity games, and a hot mic caught him saying in English something along the lines of, "I'm ready, I'm coming."
Yeah.
Because he was in the toilet or something, and then he had to bat. "I'm okay, I'm coming, I'm ready."
Actually, that's a good Hall of Fame shout, though, now that you bring that up, because I know, talking to some of my Doosan friends, they hate Na Ji Wan. A lot of people hate OJ1, etc., etc. But the player you love to hate, the KBO has. I can't really think of anybody at your particular team that I just don't like. There probably is somebody down the years. I know, like, the first baseman, Park, is from Gwangju as well. He always seemed to play well against the Tigers when I first came over. The dude with the glasses. Yeah.
But he was dad, though. He was dad. He was that guy who was very lovable because he had the glasses, and he was in his late 30s, and I literally would see him put his arm around the younger guys and mentor them. He was literally just dad. And that is who's on the back of this SK Wyverns authentic Pikachu jersey.
So for people listening to this, then this goes on to podcast platforms later on this week, probably on Monday if anybody's listening to this. You got one SK Wyverns jersey on, and you're flashing another one that has a Pikachu on the front of it. But the Pikachu one is insanely ridiculous. You're not even sure how much you paid for it, but it is a collector's item, I guess. But there's something else you wanted to say. The writing, and I agree with you, the style of the writing on the front of that SK Wyverns jersey you have compared to the one they have at the moment, it's huge. The difference is huge.
I'm going to rebutton the center of the jersey here really quick for those of us watching actual video format, because I was fiddling with the buttons because my living room got rather warm. This font was good, and it popped because they had the orange lettering, and the W just looks sharp. It looks like it's cutting, like a dragon, or I don't know, a wyvern cutting through the air. And then they decided to come up with something that a high school team could have come up with on PowerPoint as the replacement. It's just typical block letters, outside shadow, white on the inside. It just looked like a complete lack of effort. And I know Kia actually got a lot of flack for their redesign, but I actually kind of respected the Kia redesign because at least someone had to think about that.
No.
SK already had very basic uniforms. I think SK is the only team in the league, and has been for the last 5 years, that wears the traditional MLB style, white at home, gray on the road. Every other team has a solid color jersey. Kia has their reds. Nexen, Kium have their burgundies, et cetera, et cetera. Doosan's got the blue. KT for a while was wearing black at home, if I remember correctly. But
yeah,
SK was the only team that was going with the traditional old school baseball, white at home, gray on the road. At least they had the orange lettering across the front with the interesting font. Now they've got black and white block letters across the front of the jersey, and they just couldn't look more generic. I'm happy they did bring back the red jersey. I have one of those upstairs. I was not there while they were wearing it, but the red jersey just pops. There's something about red in baseball that just works for me.
Yeah, I agree.
But I do miss this font style.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, because when I came over here for the first time, the Wyverns were the best team in the country, and the Tigers win in 2009 was a fluke because they did nothing in the years before or after that. But the Wyverns were definitely the best team in the league, and then suddenly the Lions came along. But going to the old stadium in Gwangju and seeing that red and white combination, that was probably the best road uniform in the league. That won around circa 2010, 11, 12, when the Wyverns are winning all those championships. I thought it was a really nice uniform that they had. Like the Lions one, the blue and white is nice as well.
I do. I am fond of Samsungs. As far as the kits that are currently in play, I'm very fond of the dark blue and gold on the NC jerseys myself. That I would say is my personal favorite in the league, which is why I also have one of those upstairs.
Yeah. Cool.
Very fun.
I haven't got one for a long time. I don't like the Tigers ones. I hate the thing that looks like a 5 at the end. It looks like Tiger 5 as opposed to Tiger.
Tiger 5.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I'm too old to buy uniforms. I wish they had the KBO. Some KBO teams got really cool alternative wear, like T-shirts or something like this. But the Tigers don't have anything good. I don't want to buy a T-shirt 7 years later that still says "New Stadium" written at the front.
Right. They're still selling the new stadium shirts.
All new Tigers, all new stadium. I don't want that.
Wow.
I'm not looking.
It's not new. It literally wasn't new when I was there. It was like 2 years old, and Daegu broke the whole new stadium thing.
Yeah, and then Masan does. We're coming towards the end of this show. Michael, thanks again for coming on and trying to give us an explanation as to why the Wyverns are so goddamn awful. But they should be better next year. So this could just be, it's 2020.
They should rebound. I mean, NC had that 1 year where in the middle of them being good, they came home dead last in the league. And NC fans I've spoken to have said it was because they played the majority of the season with no catcher. As I said before, SK started this season without their star catcher, so it should just be as simple as plug and play, hopefully, fingers crossed.
Just get better foreign players in next year as well. So coming up then this week, I'm not sure, as you were saying, it's difficult for you to watch. Baseball is coming up. The 2-game series, what do you prefer, the 2 or the 3-game series?
The 2-game set's giving it away. For me, I prefer a 3-game series, and here's why, because there's a definitive winner to the series.
Sure.
Obviously, they don't matter. They don't particularly matter. Oh, we won a 3-game series against you guys in May. Nobody cares. But it's easy to keep track of, all right, my team's on a series win, a series win, a series win, a series loss. Okay, we pulled out a sweep. It's an easier way to kind of keep track of the trends in a sport that has so many games and that has so many things to follow. I don't really like looking at winning and losing streaks in baseball because they just happen. Every good team is going to lose 4 or 5 in a row at least once in a season. Every bad team's going to go on a 3-game winning run somewhere in there.
Yeah.
So I like looking at a block of 3-game series and say, okay, we've won 8 of our last 10 series. We're on a positive trend right now.
Yeah.
So the 2-gamers, I think they just go by so fast. You don't really get a feel for how the teams match up against each other. And honestly, more often than not, the series end up split.
Yeah.
But I'm zooming in here now to look at the games coming on.
So this is Tuesday and Wednesday. There's no games on Monday. Whatever. I mean, I'm sure there's some games need to be played up. But if you look at those Tuesday and Wednesday games, none of them really stick out. I guess the Tigers and the Heroes might be a bad game. LG against SK, unlikely. Hanwha against Tucson. There's actually not really a standout fixture at all in terms of the Tuesday and Wednesday games.
Those should all be clean series sweeps. The one that I could honestly see giving the biggest fight would be Lotte might steal one because they're not completely dead, but they know that they're circling the drain. So they'll give it all they got, but they'll probably Lotte themselves into a loss anyway.
The midweek series are top 5 teams against bottom 5 teams. There's no current playoff teams playing against each other. So I think
that's a shame. Yeah. Because those last 3 spots are tight. They should be playing each other right now. But those should be 5 clean sweeps.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move through that then. I like the one on Thursday and Friday. KT Kia could be a big series. Absolutely, NC and the LG Twins should be a big series. Other than that, then we get a lot more series like Hanwha against Lotte and Doosan against Samsung. Your boys are on the roads to the Dome.
Ultimately, LG are fighting for their lives. NC you never want to let your foot off the gas, but if there's a team that can kind of take it easy right now, it is the Dinos because there's 7 games in hand.
Agreed.
Series to watch in the midweek, definitely Kia KT.
Yeah.
KT, like I said, they have to start stepping on throats and prove that they belong in that playoff spot. They can't back in. And Kia have to fight for their lives right now because they have been handed opportunity after opportunity from multiple different teams, and they are just vomiting all over themselves every chance they get. But to go to the
nice way to put it together. There's one doubleheader on Sunday, and that's Doosan against Kiev, and that should be a good game. KT against LG is a standout weekend series, surely.
Absolutely. I mean, I think as fans, as neutral fans that we are, we have to hope that one way or another that series is a sweep. If that this is another reason I don't like 2-game series. If that series is a split, it's a wash. It does nothing in the standings. But if that series is a sweep, whoever wins it can take a little bit of a breath, and whoever loses it has their feet to the fire going into next week. So for that, I really wish it was a 3-game set, in all honesty. But
Twins leading 5-4 at the moment.
LG leading that season series 5-4 at the moment.
Yeah. That's
really, I'd say the pressure is more on LG right now, obviously. KT's got a couple of games cushion, but with 30-something left to play, every single one of them matters. Oh, look, a tie for those of you tuning in from outside of Korea who don't know the KBO that well. Those happen.
Because Kim against Doosan, I like that. The Heroes are 5-2 over Doosan this season with a tie thrown in there as well. So most of the big series this week, we said there's nothing really to look forward to on Tuesday and Wednesday. I'm not sure what SPO TV is showing yet for anybody watching this internationally, but from Thursday through to Sunday, any game involving the KT Wiz looks like the standout series. So that's it. We're done. We're done for this week. Thanks for coming on again. I hope you enjoyed your return to Grand Slam KBO.
Good to be back.
Yeah.
Always good to be back. And it's the mid-afternoon for me right now. So if you guys are going to do these late-night recordings, you can surely call me up anytime. Love to be on here, talk about the game that's been my whole life.
Yeah. We tend to do them at around about this. We tend to finish them around about this time. There's always a couple of beers going around on the tables as well. But Matthew is sick this week. He should be back next week with the Hall of Fame and Hall of Shame results. And then when Bradley's not on a romantic weekend, he should be back sometime soon. Yeah, thanks for coming on. Thanks for joining us again. And I think for you, just ride out the rest of 2020. Hopefully there's baseball to watch inside the ballpark in 2021, and your team should definitely be a lot better than that.
Well, I got baseball to play next week out here in Germany. Unfortunately, it's not streamed. But for all you guys, stay safe, have fun. Matthew, I'm sure you're watching this. Get better soon, man. We miss you. And we'll certainly be in touch.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Talk to you next Sunday.